Okay. At 3 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So if they take roll.
All members are present. Jerry is on via Zoom.
Have the agenda before us. A motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Supervisor Rick P, second by Supervisor Scott P. Any discussion? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. Okay, agenda is approved. So, item on the agenda: discuss and or act on vacant register of deeds position. So, I wanted to have the committee back together to discuss looking at the possibility. I'd like to look at making a compromise and as Jerry mentioned in our last meeting, looking at hiring a part-time deputy in that office to help with duties right now. So that's what I'd like to talk about. So, and I guess,
Mr. Chair.
yes.
So as you may recall, at our last Administrative Finance Committee meeting, we voted to move forward with a second time study for the Register of Deeds office. I had asked the Register of Deeds to provide me with a timeline that would be more reflective of a busy time in her area, and I never received anything official. Working with Kyle, he and I determined that June looked to be a busy time in her department based on historical month-over-month data. And in the interest of providing her resources in the interim, I sent out a communication indicating the county had 2 internal staff ready, willing, and able to assist the Register of Deeds in being out of the office on occasion. I sent a follow-up email the next week to the Register of Deeds asking that she consider setting up training with Stephanie Bren and Melissa Powell. I also asked her to send them online software training, if any, so as to not interrupt her workflow. I followed up once again later that week and still haven't heard back from her. Since the last Administrative and Finance Committee meeting, events have taken place that have created a new dynamic surrounding the vacancy in the Register of Deeds office. That's why we're here. We need to revisit the filling of a vacancy in the Register of Deeds office. Part of this process includes sharing more detail with you. Kyle is going to go over the following: a historical discussion about the Register of Deeds office prior to my coming on board, year-over-year activity level, countywide payroll and benefits sustainability. And now I'll turn it over to Kyle.
Let's share my screen here. Oops.
Okay, now you're sharing the screen. So,
I'm just going to through all this stuff here. All right. So,
no.
I'm not sharing it right now. I'll pull it up in a second. So this isn't really a new idea that we're discussing. Prior administration had discussions about the structure of the Register of Deeds department and the need for a change in that area. The previous Register of Deeds actually stated that at the November 2022 Admin and Finance meeting that, and this is a quote, I have met with previous administration in regards to filling that position, so this is nothing new. And that was at the 49-minute, 49-second mark of that Admin and Finance meeting in November. So what we're talking about isn't anything new with the Register of Deeds office. There have been internal employees outside of administration and finance that have brought up the amount of idle time within the Register of Deeds department back when it was 3. There's also been board members that have brought to our attention the appearance that there may not be enough work to be done in the office. And to my knowledge, there had not been a time study for this office as a result of vacancies in the past. There hasn't, I don't think there's been any vacancies in the time that I've been here. I think maybe once, and that was maybe 2017, 2018. So next, all right, I'm going to pull up this document here. So this document on the screen is showing just the year that the reports were made. This is the annual reports for the Register of Deeds. Shows the total documents recorded, the number of documents that were e-recorded, percentage of documents that were e-recorded, birth, death, marriage, divorce, veteran discharges, and then a total of all of those items that are on the annual report. So it's 2017 through 2022 data. And using the time study that we had done when we were over there, we averaged it's probably a little under 5 minutes roughly per each of these items, which then would bring us out to, for 2022, for example, about 913 hours. Also with that time study, we realized that there's going to be other stuff outside of this, such as back indexing, office updates, mail retrieval, customer assistance, genealogy, scheduled appointments, and that type of stuff. During the time study that we conducted, about 44.2% of that time was added in to account for those other items that aren't on the annual report. So then it comes out to about 1,636 hours for factoring in those other items. There's 2,080 hours in a year, so then the blank space you're left with is 444 hours. So that's like leisure hours, you know, time for vacation, appointments, etc. But I mean, there still would need office coverage during that time potentially. But
can you minimize? Are you able to minimize that?
minimize. Oh, this thing again. There.
Like
It's
I can't
still
see
up
your
there.
column. Okay.
Yeah, it's still up there. Hold on. That last column.
There you go.
There. Just scroll it over. So this is kind of the data that we're looking at, the estimated total time to complete all of the essential items. Then we kind of added in the 44.2% of the total time for like classified as non-essential items. And then the available hours outside of when you calculate out the 2080. One thing to point out is the e-recording over the years has gone up significantly. In 2017, it was about 26% of documents were e-recorded. 2022, 64%. So it's gone up quite significantly, which typically would mean less people coming in at the window. The Register of Deeds position that pays approximately $73,000 a year in the benefits package, that brings the cost of the position to well over $100,000. It's typically expected that at this salary level, additional time may need to be put in to complete all statutory duties of that day. I mean, and as with any department head, they may need to stay late on occasion. In fact, actually, the position makes more than some of our other department heads within the county. And again, just want to reiterate, this isn't something new. We've had internal discussions in the past about Register of Deeds staffing, and this used to be a 3-person department. A full-time deputy Register of Deeds would come in at about $80,000 or more per year, and that's continued. We'd have to continue to staff that, and if that person is in that position. So it's every single year we're going to be spending money on that staffing. All right, so now I got another tab of this document here. So this one is going to show the wages and benefits paid out from 2017 to 2022 across the entire county. So we're using the actual wages and benefits paid out from 17 to 2022. And then 2023, we're showing the budgeted amount for wages and benefits, which is why there's this large gap from 22 to 23. It's just over $2 million. So in 2024, what we're doing here, we're trying to show how much more we're going to have to actually come up with in order to, I mean, basically just how much the budget's going to rise, mainly due to wages and benefits. So we factored in a 4.2% cost of living adjustment because we weren't able to do the full 8.2% with the 2023 budget. And the 8.2% again was from the April CPI data. So we're just basically plugging that difference right here with the 4.2. When I did figure these out, I removed the elected official wages because they would not go up at the 4.2%. They're set by resolution. And then I added them back in after calculating that out. So I did a 4.2% on all the other wages. I did a 9% on health insurance because that's what our preliminary estimate is going to be for health insurance. And I added in the investigator and took out 2 deputy register of deeds positions in this 2024 preliminary estimate for payroll, wages, and benefits. So that ends up being about $1 million more than 2023's budget. One thing to note, this data is not including the step increases that employees will be receiving in 2024. So the step increases, as you guys are all familiar, it's just raises outside of the cost of living adjustment at milestone year or milestone marks of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10, 15, and 20. And some of the step increases are upwards of 7.5%. So how are we going to fund all of the future salary adjustments when we're seeing increases of $1 million at a time with wages and benefits? What we need to do, we need to analyze the positions as they become vacant. There's numerous other departments that are doing just that. Solid waste, they actually eliminated a position after a retirement. There was a truck driver position. HHS is holding a position open to see if they can do without filling vacancy by reassigning duties. The county clerk's office had what was called a just trial period. We were going to see how they managed the office with having 1 less deputy. And it was determined that the county clerk did not need to fill that position after we kind of did that trial period. And there's been times where we've had staff from admin and finance fill in actually over at the county clerk's office. Like I've even sat over there to cover a lunch and worked on my laptop there. There's countless other examples throughout the entire county of departments analyzing their positions. There's also a number of cost savings initiatives to help with affording the wages and benefits in the coming years, such as consolidating printers, removing on-call wages, eliminating unnecessary spending for outside organizations, and the list goes on for ways that we're looking to save costs. We're working on this daily in order to find cost savings and thinking of ideas to find new revenue and eliminate costs. So this is something that we're always trying to think about. Affording the cost of living adjustments in future years is concerning when you put it down on paper and look at it like this. It's showing that we're going to need to come up with $1 million more next year in 2024. And then there's also areas of potential lost revenue. We have a real potential to lose $500,000 revenue source in 2024 from the general fund. Register of Deeds department is in the general fund, so they kind of help out with funding everything else. Right now, we can't really share what that revenue loss is going to be. It's a contractual revenue loss, but we are always looking at the big picture in real time as a change in one department could impact another department. And again, this is nothing personal. Nobody should take it personally. And as a department head, we must always challenge our processes, our efficiencies, and staffing needs. This potential gap that we're talking about needs to be recovered somewhere. And analyzing positions, again, as they become vacant to determine if there is a true need is the best way to potentially save a lot of tax dollars. Just because a position was budgeted for does not mean that it should be filled if there's not a need. There's other ways that we could assist with the 3 elected offices. Perhaps that could be consolidating them all into one area with one service window. Then there would be a total of 3 deputies between those elected officials. So we could certainly have coverage amongst the total of 6 staff that would be in that one area. And based on the information presented earlier and the further research we did in preparation for this meeting, we may not even need an additional time study. We have to be open-minded and think outside the box and outside of our conventional ways of thinking. There's always a different way to do things, different ways to allocate time, space, and resources. And the biggest contributing factor to success is teamwork. stuff.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'll close with this. As the county manager administrative coordinator, one of my job duties is to collaborate with department heads, recommend changes to the county board and committees, and organization and staffing of departments, including creation, consolidation, and elimination of programs and positions. While I recommend a certain direction, whatever the board determines to be the direction is what I will support and carry out.
Do you have other people that need to speak yet? Because nobody wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, probably. Supervisor Shapey? You want to speak now?
I think she was coming in. Maybe she.
No, no.
No,
you-
you're
yeah.
on the road. Over here.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Supervisor Payne?
Yes. Question for Cynthia, what would you recommend? Because one of the two people that were volunteering to help out has sent a letter saying that they've rescinded that they're not interested. So you only have one person left that's volunteering to help out.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I just became aware that just before the meeting, and it's unfortunate that that happened. My hope is that that she may still be interested. I mean, I think that's what she indicated in the letters, that if things change, and I don't want to get into the communication that went out, but as it relates to my recommendation, there's three things I consider. One, the community, right? The county government, fiscal health, sustainability of our payroll. And it is a very big concern of mine of being able to sustain our payroll going forward. And then, so my recommendation, it's hard to justify a position. However, we do have to provide her some sort of backup so that she can be out doing trainings and lunch and vacation, whatever it would be. So consolidating the departments, I mean, this was maybe, when I say consolidate, I don't mean that everyone's going to be on top of each other. It would be one service window and then have three distinct departments within that area. That way a customer comes in and it's a one-stop shop, if you will. They don't have to go to one window wondering where do they go for certain activity. Then there's coverage. So I feel like the county would be assisting her, being out, that we would have that many personnel in like one area. Now, I don't know how soon that would be. I mean, obviously this is going to be a culture change, so I have to deal with that. So as it relates to the budget, I'm concerned. Is this a lot of money? Let's say if we do the compromise, which is, I believe is on the floor, a compromise by doing a part-time. I did offer this, to kind of look into a part-time, and I was told adamantly that it needed to be a full-time position. And this is coming from the Register of Deeds. She and I spoke. I talked about potentially maybe recommending or looking into a part-time, and that didn't seem to suffice. So I'm hearing what you're saying with the part-time, and this is something that I was actually leaving a meeting thinking I could probably get behind, because it's not a lot of money compared to our budget. However, we're going to be $1 million trying to find a gap and trying just to meet our regular obligations. Every bit counts. Maybe there's other cost savings. I mean, we have a lot of ideas and things that are going on all the time to save money. You heard about the 500,000 contractual loss that's going to impact our general fund. And so if we don't have a revenue source, we have to come up with another revenue source that's going to cover that gap. So a revenue source or a cost savings. Is there another cost savings on the horizon? Absolutely, but and that meeting's coming up, soon in the future. So again, this is a very dynamic thing. So being fiscally responsible, it's real time. One day you'll be presented something, and then you'll have to kind of work on it immediately to see if there's another avenue that we can go. So with that, I would say what And again, whatever the board decides, I'm not gonna go against it. I'm going to support it and I will make it work. I will carry it out, whatever the wish of the board is.
I think Mr. Dozel.
Okay. Everybody go.
So my understanding is we reached out to Wisconsin Counties Association for some legal interpretation of the state statute, right? Which I believe there's a state statute that requires the Register of Deeds to be able to fill this position, and they have the ability to appoint this person. So we reached out to the Wisconsin County Association for their legal interpretation of that state statute. What is the result of that?
And court counsel wants to.
Okay. It's kind of a lengthy answer here. I'll try to get to the point, but this is based upon my review of the statutes, my review of case law, along with the information from the Wisconsin Counties Association. Okay, so you got to first keep in mind that the Register of Deeds is a constitutional office under the Wisconsin Constitution. It's an elected position. The statutory powers and duties of the elected officer cannot be narrowed, enlarged, or taken away by a county board unless the legislature has authorized such action. And the Register of Deeds does have the statutory authority to appoint a deputy or deputies to fill open deputy positions. However, the county board has discretion to establish the number of employees in any department, including deputies to elective officers. But the county board also has to provide enough financial resources for the elected official to fulfill his or her constitutional duties. So what we're looking at here, a Register of Deeds generally retains the authority to actually appoint deputies to open positions. Wisconsin courts have concluded that a Register of Deeds appointment authority is unimpaired by the county board's authority under WisStats 59.22, because under that statute, the county board is only granted authority to establish the number of deputies to be appointed and not the authority to appoint such deputies in place of a Register of Deeds. So yes, the authority to appoint a deputy is left up to the Register of Deeds. The county board cannot appoint a deputy. However, the county board maintains the authority to establish the employees' wage or the deputies' wages, hours, and other conditions of employment, and also has the authority to determine whether or not a deputy should be appointed. There was an issue brought up whether a single employee may simultaneously serve as a deputy to the Register of Deeds and a deputy to another elected office. And that can be done, but it has to be done with the consent of the elected officials. And there was a situation in here, according to the Wisconsin Counties Association, that said, you know, that this could be achieved by simply assigning a regular employee, in other words, a non-deputized employee, to split their time between the two offices, as the county board could simply create the position, establish the number of hours that the position will be assigned to each office, and then hire a qualified candidate. However, again, according to Wisconsin Counties Association, it may be preferable for such employee to be deputized by both officers so that the employee is able then to temporarily assume the duties of the elected officer in the event of a vacancy and absence or inability to perform the duties, which then left me to think, if we do not have a deputized person in there, can that employee do the duties of the Register of Deeds if the Register of Deeds is not there? Taking in what the Wisconsin Counties Association has said in my own review, I think that if it's just a non-deputized employee, and it does state in here that the Register of Deeds can supervise that employee. However, what hasn't been addressed by the Wisconsin Counties Association directly is, can that non-deputized employee perform the duties if the Register of Deeds isn't there? I looked into this further. I don't have an answer on it. couldn't find any case law or any statute, but I did look under section 69.07 of the Wisconsin statutes. That has to do with the vital records, which is also a duty of the Register of Deeds. And in that one, it's a very short statute. It says the county Register of Deeds shall, except for filing, electronically signed and assigned a date of acceptance to vital records presented in his or her office under this chapter. There's also a second one says that the Register of Deeds shall designate a deputy appointed under section 59.43 sub 3, which is the Register of Deeds deputy, to perform the Register of Deeds duties under this section during the Register of Deeds absence, illness, or disability. That is different from the duties of a register that's under the Register of Deeds on their normal duties recording land, because that one is that to cause items to be recorded. So the cause items to be recorded, you could have a non-deputized person doing it. What does 69.07 say? As I look at it, doesn't have the same wording. So again, and we did discuss this with Andy Phillips, and his position is that a non-employee or non-deputized employee could do the work. I can't give you a definite one way or the other. And
well, based on what you just read, it sounds like they can do the work in the presence of the Register of Deeds, but they would not be allowed to do the work in the absence of the Register of Deeds, correct?
That's an interpretation, but there's not a case law or something on it that addresses that one way or the other.
But the other question you asked is the interpretation is it doesn't have to be a full-time deputy.
True.
Based on what you just read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I talk?
If I might interrupt. No,
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to start by, I wouldn't have went for the appointment if I knew that I wasn't going to have a deputy. I am overwhelmed with the workload in my office. I am missing phone calls. I do have people at the counter. I have steady recordings coming in. There is no busy time or slow time in our office. We don't have the sales this time of year that we do, maybe more during spring, summer, fall, but we still have people doing TODs, terminations, adding people to deeds, taking them off, refinancing, putting it in trust. I'm still getting documents in to record. They're just not maybe sales with big transfers. So I still have the workload and the emails, and I have had multiple title companies, attorneys, people at the counter questioning why I don't have help, why I'm not able to be answering the phone calls that people keep calling back. This affects my customer service. This is affecting me. The governor appointed me to work for the citizens of this area, and I'm not able to do that being short-staffed. I don't know how a part-time person works. They need to be there to know how the office is working every day, all day. Things are changing all the time. We have a new program that we're going to be getting in April, having to do with Daniel's Law. That's something somebody should be in there and learning who we're going to be shielding from the general public. How you allow title companies to see their documents or banks, attorneys. This is something they need to be in the office knowing what's going on. They need to know how to record a subdivision. We don't get those in all the time. If they're working and a subdivision comes in and I'm not there, no recording can proceed until that subdivision is recorded. And all documents have to be recorded in order, which means everything is on halt. If I'm gone for a week, nothing is getting recorded because that is not getting done. We create new descriptions, we invalidate legal descriptions. If there's an error with a document, we got to go do investigative work to find out why there's an error on that. I want to address Kyle's work study when he came into study, shadow me for 1 hour. He came in at 1:30, stated he was going to be there all afternoon. He stated, I talked to him about printers and job openings. I am a department head. I had every right to question about them taking away the printer that we use for vital records. Because now I have to use a public printer, which now the state says once I put that paper in that printer, I am not to walk away from that printer. but I have to go to my printer, my computer to push print. He made the comment, I don't have the people in my office like I normally do. Last week, I had somebody from the DOT in my office for 3 hours. I've had surveyors in my office. I've had a lot more people in my office recently. So there are people, and when they're in there, I can't print vital records because I can't put that paper in and walk away. I talked to you about the job opening because I questioned why you were doing job shadowing and not HR. Because I don't know why the finance director was job shadowing me. As far as that, you didn't put in the report that I did research on a road right away, that somebody came in and was questioning if there was if that road right away in a subdivision was still there or if it was vacated. I looked that up, searched it out, called the person, told him I found it, and told him he could come in and purchase a copy, which he did the next day and thanked me for doing it. I also made notes to talk to Sam in GIS to get this fixed on the map. That didn't make your report. At 2:30, you received a phone call. I gotta go, and you picked up your laptop and left. I showed up at your office at 4:15 and I said, how come you never came back? You said you got busy, and I said I was busy recording all afternoon. It wasn't a point to say I was busy. It was just letting you know I was busy all day that day. And I don't feel that that was a fair job shadow. I was not at that admin and finance meeting that morning, which I know people had asked, because I was blindsided at that meeting at 8 o'clock. I had no idea I was going to make the interviews were going to be canceled the morning before. And I went back to my office after having my office closed for 45 minutes for that meeting. And I had 16 recordings I had to take care of. I had emails, I had phone calls, and I had people at the counter. That's why I was not able to attend this meeting. I don't think this is fair that I am not allowed any help. Every other elected official has a full-time deputy, but I'm not allowed to. I'm giving up one. That's saving the county some money. I'm giving up one. How much time have we spent going over on whether I can have a deputy or not? How much money are we spending with these meetings? Isn't this about what's best for the customers of this area? The people that come in and the service they're getting, that they don't have to wait or call back 5 times to get somebody because I'm on the phone. Friday, I spent a half hour on one phone call, 20 minutes on another phone call, and I can't go record while I'm doing this. Somebody has to wait at the counter. I'm missing other phone calls. This affects me because before, when Jody was in office, it was open. Phone calls were answered. Counter was taken care of. Recordings were done. Now I'm in and recordings are delayed. They're not going out to the next day because I'm having to audit my own work, which it was made a point of that they liked that we had checks and balances in place for our finances and recording. There is no more checks and balances. It's all on me.
I have a question. I know everyone in here except the gentleman sitting beside you, and I need to know who we're talking about.
Sure. My name is Israel Ramon. I'm the Register of Deeds for Milwaukee County. Prior to being appointed Register of Deeds, I was an attorney in private practice, primarily doing employment and disability law in Milwaukee, and I had a statewide practice. I was appointed in 2019 and won election in 2020. In addition to being the Register of Deeds in Milwaukee County, which is the largest Register of Deeds office in the state, I am also the 3rd Vice President of the Wisconsin Register of Deeds Association, and I'm here on behalf of the association and on behalf of my county to talk about the statutory conflicts that have arisen as a result of this situation. I believe that's Mr. Hayes, isn't it? Yes. Hi, Mr. Hayes. So part of my duties as a 3rd Vice President of the Register of Deeds Association is fielding internet inquiries from the public, from title companies, from attorneys, and from other government officials. I received an email inquiry from Mr. Hayes regarding statutory provision 59.43 sub 3. That's the provision in the statute that mandates that Register of Deeds can appoint a deputy or deputies as they see fit. I responded to Mr. Hayes. I indicated to Mr. Hayes that the Register of Deeds has unfettered ability and power under the statute to appoint a deputy or deputies. That is different than the power that a board has. So the board actually has the power to take a look at the number of employees in a given office, even a constitutional office, such as the clerk of courts, the ROD, or the treasurers. So while we can appoint deputies, the board can tell us how many employees we currently have. I'd like to be a resource for the board and for other interested individuals if you have questions, but I would like to address some issues that have arisen so that we're all on an even playing field and know what's going on. So to begin with, the Register of Deeds office has existed in the Wisconsin territory since the late 1700s. As a matter of fact, when we were part of the Michigan territories, the authorities appointed a recorder that recorded the deeds. Subsequently, the Wisconsin territory was developed, and there were two counties that were developed as a result of that: Brown County and Crawford County. And you had two Register of Deeds at the time recording real estate instruments for the conveyance of property in Wisconsin. We predated the 1848 Constitution of Wisconsin, and we were included because we were a vital point or a vital part of the economic efficiency of the state of Wisconsin. Without a Register of Deeds office recording, there will be no conveyance of any property at all. And as you probably all know, property is the single largest source of wealth of any American living. So the problem that we have here is that Wisconsin is a race notice state under the statute. That means that the first person to the Recorder of Deeds office has preference when there is a legal dispute on a parcel of property. And Mr. Hayes can correct me if I'm wrong in that regard. Because while I practiced law for 25 years, I no longer am practicing law given my responsibilities as an ROD. But the importance of being a race notice state cannot be overlooked. So if there is a conflict in Adams County between two people that claim the same property, the first person that records gets preference under the law. So the judge would have to take a look at that and they would get preference. The problem that develops is that the first person that records may not have the document recorded in a timely way, and somehow a second document can be recorded instead of the first document that was presented at the window of the ROD office. So having adequate staff is very, very important to fulfill the duties and the race notice nature of the statute that we currently have. I'm sorry.
We're reaching for straws here, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean reaching for straws, because I'd like to address any concerns that you have.
Simply because one case, the first one to register went to the ROD, gets preference. Does that make it automatic? Absolutely not.
No, you take a look at, so a judge and a jury can take a look at the facts, but we are a race notice state, and I think Mr. Hayes can agree with that. So regardless of what we may think of the factual development of a case, statutorily, we are designated as a race notice state, and as a constitutional officer in the state, I must abide by the statute. I don't write the statutes. We're not legislators. We're not technically politicians, even though we're elected office, but we have to follow the law. And that's my primary concern, is that we have to obey the law because that's set forth by the legislature.
Just a quick point. My hearing isn't all that great. So are you saying race? What are you saying when you were describing race?
Race notice?
So the first one there wins.
Okay, so what did you call it?
Race notice.
Race notice.
Yes,
thank you.
That's what the law.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. No, and by race I don't mean somebody's background. Running to the office to record, and that's been our history since the 1800s. Since we've had an ROD office in what is now the state of Wisconsin. Given the the constitutional mandate that every county in the state have constitutional officers such as the treasurer, the county clerk, and the Register of Deeds, Then you look at the statutes that correspond to the constitutional mandate. So ours is under 59.43, but we also were imposed or given, or excuse me, we were directed to issue vital records, as Mr. Hayes, Corporation Counsel Hayes had indicated earlier. So there are two problems that we have, because the two main duties of our office are to record real estate documents, to make them available to the public, and to charge for those. We have to do that under the statute. The next major function that we have is the issuance of vital records. Now, if you take a look at 59.43, which is our recording statute, there is no indication there that for somebody to record, they have to be a deputy. But if you take a look at 62, that's the chapter with the vital records, there is a provision in that statute that indicates that the ROD must deputize someone in order to issue a vital record. As a matter of fact, I cannot give access to anyone in my office that I have not designated or deputized in the State Vital Records Information System. Now, the State Vital Records Information System is controlled by the Vital Records Office in Madison and the state registrar that's appointed by the governor. Current one was appointed by Governor Evers. The prior one, very nice lady, she was appointed by Governor Walker. But they give us our mandates. And if I hire someone to work in my vital records department, they cannot access Sybaris to issue a vital record unless I deputize them. And at this point, there's no indication under the statute, Corporation Counsel Hayes, that says that anybody can deputize other than the ROD. So only the ROD can deputize, in my view, and we could certainly talk to the Wisconsin County Association, only I as ROD can deputize somebody to issue a vital record. And so if the ROD in Adams County does not deputize anyone to issue a vital record, they can't do it. So let's assume that the ROD must take an employee that they don't want. Number one, under the statute, they have no obligation to train that employee. Under the statute, they have no obligation to deputize that employee to issue a vital record. So in their absence, those duties cannot be done. So we can't have somebody to record a document in the absence of the Register of Deeds without their consent. We cannot have anybody issuing a vital record if the ROD is not here. Even if the ROD is here, if they have not been deputized, they can't do it. So the real problem for our county residents, both in Adams County and Milwaukee County, because we're the same people, we're all residents of Wisconsin, is that if I have people that are going to get married and need their birth certificate or their divorce certificate or a prior marriage certificate to present to the county clerk, they're not going to be able to do it while Julie is gone. It's just not going to happen. If there's a subdivision that needs to be recorded in our office, that's not going to happen without the Register of Deeds. So any assistant, anyone can work at the counter and take a document. The problem is it can't be recorded without the consent of the ROD, and it's the ROD that trains the staff. Now, in my office, I don't train staff. I have 25 people and I have 4 different deputies that do the training for me. I'm basically the administrator and the elected office holder. But in most counties in Wisconsin, if not all, there's 72 of us, it's the ROD that does the hand-on training to the staff. And there's nothing in the law that compels an ROD to train somebody that they have not deputized and they haven't hired. So I think it was a good idea for, I don't know if your county requested the opinion from the Wisconsin Counties Association and Andy Phillips, who I know and respect. I just read that memo today. I think it's very telling. I think that there are inherent conflicts between the position of these employees and their fiscal responsibilities versus the statutory duties that are imposed upon the county of having a constitutional officer. And I think that's where the conflict arises. As far as I'm concerned, just listening this afternoon, we've put the cart before the horse. So here we have a situation where my understanding is that the board approved the 2023 budget. It was budgeted for 2 full-time deputies, And now this Register of Deeds is being prevented from hiring these deputies and undertaking her statutory duties. Heaven forbid that she take a vacation, or worse, have a medical illness and need to take FMLA. Well, she wouldn't necessarily need to take FMLA because a constitutional officer would technically not be deemed an employee for those purposes, but heaven forbid she have a situation where she cannot come to work and there's no one deputized to undertake the duties. Then you could not issue vital records for your residents, and you could not report, certainly not report plats, because I don't think there's anyone qualified to do an examination of a plat. But so the fact that we're talking about not hiring when in the 2023 budget, this board approved 2 deputies is troubling to me. The fact that we have one time study done that perhaps was not as efficiently done as it should have been, and now there's talk of another time study. What a waste of money and time and effort, to be quite honest with you. When I run my office, I am very keen on saving my county money, and I've saved my county over $300,000 a year. But that's my county. It's the biggest one, and we make the most revenues in the state. But I'm always looking to be fiscally responsible with my office, as are my counterparts in the treasurer's office and the county clerk's office. And the last thing I want is a budget director telling me how to do my job or who to hire. I will collaborate with our budget director, and I do. I collaborate with the finance committee on the board, and I want to make sure that the work of the people is always done in my county. And I think that's what we want here. But you can't do it at the expense of a constitutional office that has statutory duties to undertake.
There's 2 things that
yes, sir.
I am concerned about what you said. One is that it's in the budget, and so automatically it's an automatic, and it's not at all. A year ago, the clerk's office was budgeted to have more than 1 deputy. They chose to try and do without, right, to save the fiduciary responsibly. And they were, and it worked. So that's one thing. The other thing that bothers me, and this is more to Julie, is that there was no response when communication went to you about how a possible solution or to be able to work with the Register of Deeds office. I mean, we heard that just now, and that bothered me. So maybe you can respond to that. I appreciate it.
We had meetings. I had a meeting with Cynthia, and then Janie and Lyanna were both in that meeting. I was in there for 45 minutes. So we had discussed these options, and I already had spoke with her on what I needed. So this was already something we discussed. So I did not respond to this because I stated I don't have time. When we hired, when I go to appoint a deputy, I'm looking for experience. I had previous real estate and title insurance experience before I took on this position. Right now, I'm overwhelmed just trying to keep the office with just me. And now to try to train 2 part-time people for just fill-in, to me seemed kind of a waste of time instead of just giving me a full-time deputy, because I have somebody that has experience that can come in and will not take out all my time training them. And that's what I'm asking for, is a full-time person instead of trying to train 2 part-time people that I'm assuming should have plenty to do in their own positions. And how is that even going to work? If I call in sick, what if they're out sick? What if it doesn't work with their schedule? I mean, it's so much harder to try to work the schedule out. And like you said, what if I get in an accident? What if I have to have surgery and I'm off for how long? This stuff can happen. We need somebody in the office to cover it. Every Register of Deeds in the state of Wisconsin has a full-time deputy.
So you are leaving us with only one solution, is that correct?
Well, we had 2. I am negotiating and saying I just want one full-time deputy. Isn't that meeting in the middle?
Well, I don't think so.
I got
You
that.
don't think so?
You stated that you have somebody already all lined up. Is that the way the county hires?
We went through the applications. We went through the matrix. We have them all scored. We had the interviews all set up. She was actually the one that scored the highest on the matrix. So that is the one I'm looking at. And she has previously worked in the Register of Deeds office.
And let me just add from an WRDA perspective, just a couple of things. So a Register of Deeds in the state of Wisconsin, and again, your corporation counsel is a very able individual, can correct me if I'm wrong. We can appoint any chief deputy that we want. So it doesn't have to go through an interview process. We don't have to post the position. I am appointing a new chief deputy as of January. I was allowed by my personnel office, by human resources, to do a dual shadow of a job 6 months before my current chief deputy retires. But I did not have to go through the normal civil service procedures to appoint a chief deputy. So that's one thing that every Register of Deeds can do in our 72 counties. The second thing is to the question of the supervisor who had some concerns about budgeted positions not being filled. That is absolutely true. I am budgeted for 25 positions. 3 of them currently remain vacant. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to fill them. I only fill those positions when I have a dire need to fill the position. Otherwise, I keep the positions and I reassess every budget cycle whether we're going to need them going forward or not. But my understanding is that's not the situation here. When you have one person, that one person has to be off a period of time. They have to have lunch, they have to go to the bathroom, they have to do things. And for that office not to be staffed during the period of time that that person is absent, I think is a disservice to your county residents. But that again, that's my opinion. But again, I'm here just to make sure that you understand that the duties of what we do are terribly important to the economy of every county in Wisconsin, especially Adams County, which it's the first time I've been here. It's a great place. But it looks like there's a lot of cabins and lakes. And I mean, this is a vibrant economy. And to have problems in the processing and reporting of real estate records makes absolutely no sense to me, especially when most ROD offices are revenue generating offices. And that's what the state expects from us because they take lots of money of the revenue that we make. They take 80% of it and we get to keep 20%. But that's our duty. So we all want efficient government and we all want to make sure that the statutes are being abided by. And in this case, given what we have, I'm not sure that the statutes are being abided by, given the resolution that these folks here have presented to this committee.
Next question. Yes. How her recollection of the time study, is that how you remember it also?
The afternoon, yeah, we did sit over there in the morning when Jody was Register of Deeds. It was Jody and Julie for that day. It was I think in December, early December. So we were over there for 3 or 4 hours in the morning. Both Cynthia.
But what about the day she talked about? Is that how that day went?
Yeah.
See, I struggle with that because I would have thought the time study would have been the actual time that he was in the office. So I'm struggling with that the time study wasn't done appropriately. So,
Chairman West, am I coming through?
Yes, you are, Supervisor.
Chairman West?
Yes.
Okay. When it's my turn to speak, would you let me know? Because my phone keeps cutting in and out.
You can speak now if you'd like.
Okay. Just a couple observations. Everybody is speaking very succinctly. I just wish to make a couple observations. One is, when we're talking about temporary help, and then we segue into duties, if I'm reading what a deputy does, it is 100% of the situations are 100% capably covered by that person. It's not a question of temporary help. It's a question of full-time resource to cover the needs of the Register of Deeds, whether they're in the office and they're just busy and some function needs to be done, or they're gone and that function needs to be done 100% correctly. Am I understanding that correctly? I don't understand if that's the case, and statute points to the fact that the ROD can appoint a deputy, in fact, shall appoint one or more deputies, if I read the statutes right. I don't understand why our current ROD isn't being backed up 100% by a full-time deputy. So if someone could explain that to me, I would be grateful.
I mean, a person can be a part-time person and do 100% of the duties.
I don't think so. Not, but I'm sorry to disagree.
They can be totally trained and be there to cover any absences that is there, and the office could be staffed. You know, there's only 40 hours in a week. I mean, if you have two people that are working 70 hours a week or 60 hours a week in total, I mean, you can cover 40 hours. You know, if Julie was out 1 week and somebody worked that other 40 hours, if the Register of Deeds was out and the deputy was there, you know, they might work 40 hours 1 week and 10 hours the next week, you know.
So you're saying that there would be a deputy, but it wouldn't be a fully staffed deputy, if I'm getting this correct.
That's what I was willing to compromise with, a part-time deputy that would be hired or appointed by the Register of Deeds until at least the next time study comes out and we can see, you know, or even before the next time study, if it would be additional time was needed, you know, at that time that position could be expanded, you know, but let's start somewhere to allow for vacancies and time off.
So Chairman West, is it a fact that two deputies were covered in the budget for 2023?
Yes.
Okay, so our current ROD is willing to say, just give me one, and then go ahead and do your time study for the second one, which was the original time study, if I'm correct. And someone said that it morphed into more than that. I think we're getting, what did the gentleman say? The cart before the horse. We should be able to support our current ROD with at least one of the budgeted deputies. I'm reading the time studies. I'm seeing the need. There was some impartiality on one of the time studies, which I kind of take right out of the running right there, because there was too much personal opinion in that letter. But I really think it's important to, one, not have to look for another ROD because she's not being staffed appropriately. God forbid that she even went that way. Sorry, ROD. And that if she's gone for anything unexpected, I understand about the vacation time, the conferences, the training, the whatever, but if there's something unexpected, there's no temporary help that's going to be able to complete those duties 100% of the time in every situation. I want you guys to look at this wisely. And that's my piece. So
thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair, can I address some of the comments of the supervisor, and thank her very much for her comments. I do want to draw your attention to the memoranda that was authored by the Wisconsin Counties Association. They hired a Tolley's law firm to provide a legal opinion on this situation. And I don't know if you have the memoranda. I've asked Julie to make several copies for you so that you do have it and you can read it. But at page 3, at the bottom paragraph, it says as follows: in part, County boards must be careful to ensure that they provide a register of deeds with adequate financial resources to perform his or her constitutional duties. While this does not mandate a board to provide a certain number of positions, including deputies, counties should make sure budgeted employee headcounts are supported by objective data to ensure they do not exercise their budgetary and organizational authority so arbitrarily and unreasonably as to effectively narrow or frustrate the proper exercise of the constitutionally or statutorily mandated officers' duties of constitutional officers. So I think that's real important. Before anybody makes a decision in your body, like my body in Milwaukee County, and you control the purse strings, but before you make a decision, the law specifically cautions a body not to frustrate the efforts of the duties of a constitutional officer. So I throw that out because that is important. I'm not satisfied with this time study that was done. I haven't seen it. Again, I'm an independent observer. My county does time studies. They've never done one in my office, but they do them. And from time to time, I am consulted by HR because I did employment law for 25 years prior to my appointment. And I do discuss those things. I think at this point, the real dilemma that we have is we have one constitutional officer that doesn't have a deputy of his or her own choosing as the statute provides. And in the absence of that constitutional officer, nothing can get done in terms of the issuance of records or reporting. And that's a disservice to your county residents in Adams County.
I have a comment on that.
Yes.
You mentioned the memorandum and Julie was supposed to make copies.
No, we haven't.
We haven't seen it.
I'm not sure how it got out. It was a draft, so I'm not sure how that even got out.
Well, and the other thing that bothers me a little bit, and this was brought up by you, I think, that the Register of Deeds doesn't have to train anyone other than the Register of Deeds choosing.
That's correct.
Okay, that bothers me.
But let me tell you why we do.
Okay.
Because we take an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of Wisconsin. And part of that is to make sure that our staff knows how to properly record. So being a Register of Deeds assistant or clerk, depending on how the county defines it, isn't just I go in, I get hired by the county and I'm ready to do my work. It takes a lot of expertise and experience to be able to examine a document, to be able to record the document, to be able to look at a plat and make sure that it meets the statutory guidelines that the statute says say plats need to do. It also takes a lot of expertise to issue a vital record. As Julie said, the issuance of a vital record or our ability to issue vital records is really paramount because the state could take away our ability to issue vital records if we do not follow their guidelines and state law. So just because every ROD office can issue a vital record, if we're not doing it consistent with the law, the state vital records office can contact the legislature and we have all kinds of problems with the attorney general. And we don't want to have problems because we're RODs because we enjoy our job. We love doing what we do and we want to serve, help service and help the public. But there's a lot of problems here that I see arguing over one position, which two were budgeted for. And then you have if you have an absence of the ROD, as a county resident, that would be a real problem for me if I came to report something and no one was here to accept it and record it that same day.
Well, I still have another question regarding all this, and that is it's an elected position.
Correct.
In this case, it's an appointed position, as is every Register of Deeds Adams County has had for the last 50 years have been appointed first, simply because they didn't serve out their term and they appointed somebody from that office. That doesn't set well with the residents of this county. There are a lot of people that question the legality of that. And even though it's legal, they question the morality of that. Now, that all being said, that person that runs for Register of Deeds, county clerk, whatever, they don't have to have a college education. They don't have this, they don't have that. We're talking about the Register of Deeds. A person could get elected to the Register of Deeds without the qualifications, simply because it is a politically, that's not the right word, but anyway, because it's an elected position. So those things, I mean, we're talking about something, we got to have this, we got to have that. And yet, because of the way the Constitution is written, sure, we could put someone in that didn't have the qualifications.
The argument that I would make on that though is it, and the first thing I want to say is I'm always for less government. Okay. But in this particular situation, I think we have to make the right decision for the department and the accuracy of the information that they're dealing with. And I have to, say, is it really the right decision to have one person responsible for the level of important data that they deal with without any backup, without any days off, without any vacation time or anything along those lines? And you know what? I'll take this person. If she doesn't do a good job, she's got an election coming up. And that's where we can deal with those other pet peeves or issues that we have with the statute or that allowed her to be appointed in the first place. So I'm not saying anything one way or the other. I don't want you to take it that way, but that's where we have the chance to voice our opinion. And if we don't think she's doing a good job, then through the election process, we can make those changes. Or if assuming you're voted out of office or into office, right? So that's where those battles get dealt with, in my opinion. I had a question for you, Walt. Sure. Is there any other county in Wisconsin that doesn't have at least one full-time employee besides registry? I believe that the only county that may have a part-timer would be Menominee County. That county is primarily made up of Native American reservation land. There's a full-time register. I believe her deputy is part-time, although I may be mistaken, but they also do not issue vital records in Menominee County at all. I did want to address the issue of an appointment versus an election. So under the law, and Mr. Hayes can correct me if I'm wrong, under the law, if a Register of Deeds is elected or appointed, they are the Register of Deeds. So the governor under the statute has the power to appoint a Register of Deeds. I remember back in the day when Tommy Thompson was, I was a very young lawyer back then, when Tommy Thompson was the governor, smart guy, Governor Thompson would appoint Democrats in Democrat counties and Republicans in Republican counties because he had an acumen for politics, because he knew the people he wanted to appoint, he wanted them to win election and stay, because he knew how important these positions were. But I will say, with the exception of the Register of Deeds and a judicial appointment, okay, the board appoints the treasurers, and the board appoints the county clerks. And when there is a vacancy for the clerk of courts, it's the judges that appoint that. So the appointment process in Wisconsin is well established, and it shouldn't be something that we take very lightly. People apply for the appointment, they undergo screening with the application. There's a committee that does that. There's a committee that actually does the interviews, and then ultimately, in the ROD case, it's the governor that appoints. As far as the treasurer and the county clerk, I'm not sure if it's the chair or the whole body that appoints, but those are the important appointments that you guys make as far as two constitutional offices. And those appointments should be as respected as a governor's appointment, regardless of the party that governor is currently. Did I answer your question? I think I may not have. No, did I?
Register deed, you want to make comment?
No, I was just going to say that through the appointment process, I went through more than probably qualification wise than if I would have been elected. I had to fill out an application. I had to have letters of recommendation. I had to send in my tax returns to the DOJ.
Julie, let me stop you, please. That wasn't about you.
I know what you're saying, that anybody can run for election and win. It's a popularity contest. I know. I got what you were saying.
But we still take responsibility.
I guess
I'll
I'll
do it again. Your lips are moving, I know that.
I know that.
I can't hear you, so.
I guess I'll say something at this point. I came in here thinking that a part-time person would be a good fit here. And then I think a part-time person, yeah, if Julie would go out for 6 weeks, a part-time person fill in for 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And it's probably not feasible. They'll probably have other things at home where they accept their schedule. And their schedules in the future, when Julie wanted off, you could schedule them in. But if she was gone, I don't know if we necessarily, that part-time person would just fit in. And I was one of the people that said that she didn't need 2 people. But after listening to the Vital Records report, after listening to how the time study was done, I'm more inclined to give her a full-time position. For now, I would love to see the administration continue to work on putting everybody in the same office. And then when somebody leaves finally, you take that position, and then every person would have 1 person for each of their departments. And I think that's the way to go. And that's where I'm at right now, unless somebody can tell me different.
So can I speak to that too?
Yeah.
Another concern that I have with a part-time person, assuming that it's not already a county employee, is there's already a plethora of open positions around the state. So finding somebody who wants to work in a skilled job like this, part-time, on call at will, I think we're thinking about the job market 20 years ago. I don't think that that's the job market we have today. So to find that person and then spend the time and energy to train them, if there's another opportunity somewhere else,
they're going to take it. They're going to take a full time.
So I think you got to look at it that way as well. That, you know, from just a realistic business perspective, part-time jobs are pretty hard to fill these days.
I think the time study is a good idea and whatnot. And I thank you guys for doing it. It's a tough job, you know, you got to look at both sides, you know, and I don't want to discount that the time study shouldn't have been done. I think that's part of her job, is to go and do due diligence on every open position. That's us as a board. We got to hold every single person that we hire accountable. And I think what she did, and Kyle, and I think there's a couple others involved, I think we should do that every position. This has been a good debate. I agree with Rick that a full-time position is warranted, and I'm glad that we had this robust discussion, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I like to go back one thing about I just saying about the time study, just that one day I didn't think was handled correctly. I agree with Scott. Time study should be done in every position. I actually questioned something at Health and Human Services a couple of months ago about having 3 people at the front desk. So I'm like these two looking for ways to cut, because I see that $1 million. I deal with the school district all the time. I see the referendum that we have going on. So I know that we have to look at personnel. That's the most expensive thing in the county. So I agree. We have good, robust discussion about this, but after hearing, the best thing about this whole day was Julie standing up for her position, because all I've heard about was, well, her vacations and other things. She talked about work today, and I appreciated that. So that's where I'm at.
Supervisor Carrillo.
Mr. Chair, I've been sitting here like a sponge, just absorbing everything in, and I've been part of time studies and what have you. And I don't think a time study should be done in-house. I think it should be an outside source where there's not opinions. It's not taking you away from your position, or Cynthia away from her position, or somebody else who shared in that time study, but an independent party that would come in and do a time study on all positions. I agree with you, Scott. Julie, you need help, and we see that, and I know where you're coming from. And to rebut Bob over there, anybody could come in and run for her position. Anybody could go in as a firefighter, as I did, not knowing anything. Sometimes you got to get hired to learn everything about the job that you can. And it's up to that individual to put the effort that Julie has to learn that position, that when Jody left, she was able to step right in. That's all the more important why she needs a deputy. Is so that if she is out for some ungodly reason, this deputy can step right in and fill in with what's going on in this county for the residents. That's all. I'll back to a sponge.
Okay, right?
No, we're here.
We've kind of lost track of the documents and so forth that go through that office and the amount of time that it takes to go through them documents. And we got a letter from a former, I suppose, deputy. Her first name was also Julie. And it was all longhand at that time, which absolutely has to take a lot more time. Would I be correct in assuming that?
That was before my time, so I'm just writing everything out.
Oh, you just dated yourself, Bob.
So, but anyway, these documents that go through and we gain efficiencies through the years and etc. I certainly would like to take advantage of some of those efficiencies that office has helped create, along with other offices within our county. And, you know, that all being said, we still have documents that haven't been presented. We have memorandums that haven't been presented. I guess I'm at somewhat of a loss. I mean, again, I apologize. I can't remember your name.
That's Israel, just like
Israel.
the country. Yes.
All right. Wow, you know, it's pretty simple. So anyway, we still haven't seen those. So I mean, I don't know where the hell we're at exactly, but it bothers me that we assume that we need a full time and we don't have to train if we don't want to train. So don't look at me.
Register.
Oh, far as I want to address the back indexing that seems to be kind of pushed off to side, that it's not an essential. We make money in our office over those documents that we get back indexed. Okay, the more farther back we go, the more accounts we can get. I get people calling, different title companies calling and asking how far we're back indexed, because then they're able to go and find these documents. Otherwise, they're calling or emailing me with volumes and pages, so I got to go find the document numbers. Title companies want us indexed back 60 years. We are not quite to 50 years. So we have over 10 years to go yet. So when there is downtime, that is the focus, is to work on the back indexing to get that done, which helps title companies and attorneys and banks with their work and makes it more efficient for them. So there is stuff to fill in. It's just not the top priority, because reporting documents and customer service is the top priority.
So that comes down to management in your office.
Right.
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 So, I mean, when I bought farms and stuff, we have abstracts that are, who knows, 30 pages long. And
you still have people that come in and go, I want to know the history of my property, you know, who owned it back then. And so you are helping them research back, and that takes time.
But today, no one uses an abstract anymore. Am I correct? I mean, it's all quick claim deeds or whatever else you call.
Right. They search back on the computer, but then that only goes back so far. Now we're going back to the books, to the grantor grantee books. And now you are going through and paging through every page to find the document. Because that's the only way we'll do it.
Okay. 15 seconds.
That's fine. I just want to say, I hear the numbers and the specifics, but nobody is really taking account. She just touched on it. The day-to-day things that come in play, where I have to go over, even in my section, to go over there and look up stuff because it's not on the computer. There's a lot of other stuff that comes into play that you can't control the time and the number of people and when they come in. There's no consistency. It's not an appointment thing that they can just come in and do. We could have 5 people in line. We could have nobody for an hour. And then it's not something you can control when it's this kind of an office, on top of just the numbers and how many things go through. I haven't heard that until now.
Supervisor Paylor. Any comments since you're?
Well, John, I've had my mind changed about 3 times in each direction. All this discussion. At first, I thought we should provide her with a part-time deputy and cross-train the other volunteers. But after listening to all this, I'm beginning to think that maybe the full-time is the way to go. I would still like to see the volunteers cross-trained, because there's nothing saying that 2 people in that office couldn't be off at the same time or anything. And if you had a cross-trained volunteer to go in there and help out, it might be a good idea.
John?
Yes. Waiting for what? I'm waiting for you guys. I'm just running the meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve a full-time position for Register of Deeds.
I'll second.
Can I get a little clarification?
A motion by, yes, Rick Pease, second by Scott Pease, so.
All right, so the next time study that was scheduled, is it off the,
I still think that we could do a time study, but I mean, it's really, if we hire a full-time person, we probably don't need a time study for that position anymore. Well, I'm not asking for 2, I'm asking for the 1. You've already eliminated the 1. So I'm suggesting that, I'm not suggesting I make a motion that we fill 1 full-time Register of Deeds position.
And we can talk about that in another future meeting, I guess. I mean, another admin and finance meeting, but additional time studies. Okay.
We put that as an agenda item.
Yeah. Okay, so for the time study, are we back to 1 vacancy, or I mean, she's already saying she's already going to sacrifice the 1. So I'm just saying
the most right now is to hire 1.
Right.
And she's already said she sacrificed the other 1.
Yep. So we need a time study.
So we probably don't need a time.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
If it passes.
Oh,
if it passes.
Yes.
Any discussion or question? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay. Noted. Motion passes. Right, voted aye.
You said okay.
So, yeah. Motion passes. So nothing else on the agenda. I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
When?
Well,
How come you guys are all wearing long sleeve shirts?
Smarty man.
okay, meeting's adjourned. We can let Jerry go now. Enjoy the weather, Jerry.
Thank you.
You're a civil rights. I'm not seeing you, John.
Was not really done.
We've represented you guys for many, many years. I love them. We have respect.
Good call. Really good.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Bob, thank you for your comments. Very insightful. You rarely get out here, so I wanted to take a look at all your. Nice to meet you. To meet you, sir. I hope to